Paul, and today I want to talk about having multiple colliders in your objects. The real idea behind this is that you can have one object, say a player, approach another object, say an enemy, and they can have different ranges of sight. So in my example, my enemy has a longer range than my player. So let's have a look a little bit more what I'm talking about. So here we have a scene and we have our cube player and our capsule enemy, and they've just got the standard rigid bodies and trigger colliders on them, and a little bit of script that tells you when the trigger has been entered. So let's just run this. Grab hold of our cube, and as we move across, as they collide, the enemy can see the player and the player can see the enemy. So what I want is for my enemy to have a bigger range. So let's just whack the radius up and run that again. So what I'm hoping is the enemy sees the player before the player sees the enemy. So here we go, we're coming along, and sure enough, the collider fires, the enemy sees the player, but because it's a collider bashing with the other collider, that means that the player also sees the enemy, and that's not what I want. So let's put the radius back, 0.5, and let's create another object. Let's create a sphere. Reset that. Okay, give it a rigid body. Don't want gravity. It's got a trigger collider, and we're going to just up the radius of that. Right, let's see. What I also need to do is in the cube, I want a little script for the player. It's doing a compare tag at the moment, so let's just take that off. I want to make sure that we can see everything that's going on. So let's run that. And as the cube approaches that sphere's collider, we see nothing at all. That's because of the physics. So let's have a look at the physics. So here we've got player, enemy, and something called emitter. Now, the sphere is an emitter. So we're not colliding with that because the sphere is just on the default. So let's call this the emitter. Put it on the emitter layer, and let's run that again. So we grab the cube, move along, and as we get into that range, the cube is now entering the sphere, sees the sphere, and on the way out. Okay. Now I've also got a bit of script I can put on this sphere emitter, so we can see what it's seeing. So let's collider detector, we put that onto there, and it's got the same untrigger enter script, very similar. So we go to the cube, and we're coming along, and sure enough, the sphere sees the cube and the cube sees the sphere. That's what we expect. So let's put the sphere as a child of the enemy and reset. Okay, and now we can crank up the radius of the sphere and run. So we go to our cube, and now the cube's coming along, and oh, the sphere sees the cube. That's okay. And the cube sees a sphere. That's fine. But so far, the enemy's not seeing it. So what we have to do is on the sphere emitter, go to its script, and we're going to say, we're going to put a tag in actually. Let's go to the enemy script, use the same compare tag. So it only triggers if it sees a player. And then we're going to put an event on it. So let's put a public event action collider. And we're going to say on detection. Okay. And then we just come in here and invoke other. Just make sure we have something listening. Okay, and then on the enemy, we can now hook that up. So let's put a start method in place, and what did I call it? Collider, detector. Oh, hang on, I've not defined that correctly. We need a static. Okay, use this new keyboard. Let's call it other, and then we can reuse the same script here. So let's see what happens now. In fact, what I'm going to do, let's go back to that script. Put a little bit something more. Okay, so here we want to see enemy is being or has detected. Trigger enter. So we've got a bit of a distinction between the two here. So let's run that. Go back to the cube. So as we move, right, the sphere has seen the player. The enemy's now been told that the player's there. And now the player can see the sphere. Now, the player's not interested in the sphere. So let's go to the script for the player and put their compare tag back in. So now when we run, the whole thing should be in place. So here's our player, unaware that we've got a good enemy with very good sight. So the player's come in, can't see the player, can't see the enemy. And oh dear, the enemy has seen the player, but the player hasn't seen the enemy. And only when we get up close, then again, we get the same trigger, so the player sees the enemy. So hopefully you can see that with a little bit of child objects and some eventing, then we can have different ranges, have different colliders involved with the two objects. Well, I hope it's been useful. Thanks.